Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Fiona G.
And I'm Chris Beers.
It's day 3 of the Democratic National Convention. NTD's Kelly Wright is on the ground in Chicago. What to expect tonight and what we saw yesterday.
Candidate Trump and his running mate, J.D. Vance, holding a rally on national security in North Carolina. It's the first outdoor event since the attempted assassination on former President Trump's life. We'll take you there.
New Yorkers will be allowed to vote by mail this November. We have the latest on the state Supreme Court's ruling.
A look at the congressional races. Florida, Alaska, and Wyoming held their primaries yesterday. We have the results and key takeaways.
Ukraine launches one of its largest ever drone attacks on Moscow. The impact it had on Russia's capital as fighting intensifies.
A look into Lewis Carroll's famous Alice in Wonderland novels. The New York Botanical Garden hosts an exhibit that pays homage to the iconic landscape of the books.
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
It's day 3 of the Democratic National Convention. Vice President Kamala Harris's running mate, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, will accept the vice presidential nomination tonight.
NTD's Kelly Wright is covering the Democratic National Convention on the ground in Chicago there. He joins us live. Good afternoon to you, Kelly. It's good to see you.
Chris, it's good to see you and Fiona as well, and you're right, I'm right here on the ground, actually just steps away from the famed Michael Jordan statue, the man who really built the United Center based on his prowess as an NBA player. And it's all about people coming together to talk about what their prowess will be within the Democratic Party and going forward and giving a biography of Kamala Harris. Last night when I was inside the arena to hear Second Gentleman Doug Emhoff talk about his wife Kamala Harris, you could hear everybody really paying rapt attention to him as he explained how he first met her on a blind date and awkwardly called her at 8:30 a.m. in the morning to say, "Hey, this is Doug." And it was really a very golden moment, if you will, to show Doug Emhoff being, unguarded and unchecked and really showing his love for the Vice President of the United States, Kamala Harris, and talking about how she came into his life at an important time in his life, and then ending that speech by saying she is coming into American life at an important time in America. But look, let's not make any bones about it. The rock star of last night was Michelle Obama, the former First Lady that some people here at the DNC call the forever First Lady, stepped on stage to thunderous applause, and it continued all the way through. And her theme of the night was, one, bringing unity, and then also challenging the members who had gathered there, the delegates, telling them this is going to be a hard fight. And if they're going to go on to victory in November, it will be a razor-thin victory. She challenged them by saying, do something. And she had everyone in the audience chanting, do something. I was there. It was very palpable how they resonated with her. And she also lobbed some firepower towards President or former President Donald Trump, and stating that the job that he's going for, will that be a black job, referring to that NABJ conference that happened here in Chicago, by the way, when the former President of the United States was challenged on his role about has he been able to appeal to black voters. The former President Donald Trump will tell you that he has, particularly among African-American men. And that's what was missing from the statement or the speech from Barack Obama, who followed up his First Lady, saying the one thing about her is that it's a foolish errand to actually try to follow Michelle Obama. But he went on to do that and talked about unity. But getting back to African-American men, he did not specifically address African-American men, Many of them who have been, some of them in a growing number, have been siding with former President Donald Trump. But what he did address was breaking out of this division, this great political and racial divide that we have in America. Going back to echoing his "there are no red states and blue states," which he stated in 2004 at the Democratic Convention in Boston. What he did was bring it home about the importance of, whether you're Republican or Democrat or independent or whatever you are, to understand that America needs to get past the division, get past the partisan divide, and come together as one nation. And that is what he sold. And he also went on to say that Kamala Harris, he believes, is someone who will be able to do that. The question now, and I'll be very quickly here, is that what happens after all of this? Tonight, we'll hear from Bill Clinton. Tonight, we'll hear from Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg. And tonight, we'll hear from Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, who is the running mate of Vice President Kamala Harris. Tim Walz is the one who will come out and champion the efforts of Kamala Harris, as well as his role as the VP nominee. He will speak to rural America. He will speak to Midwesterners, which is an important component of going forward in terms of those battleground states. He will speak to all Americans, and he will speak about the power of his own narrative. People will get to see who he is. And just to sum this up, one of the things that Barack Obama stated about Tim Walz is that he's a man who's been a coach. He's been out there as a military veteran, and he wears flannel shirts. And flannel shirts is not something that you wear when you're being told and instructed about how to build your image. He says those flannel shirts come out of the closet, talking about the certain type of rural atmosphere and personality of Tim Walz. A very dynamic man in Minnesota, and many people will see on that he is progressive, and some people will criticize him for that. The Republicans are setting up to do that. It's going to be an interesting night. It will be just as electric when all of these particular people come and step to the podium. It's very electric here right now. We just heard from John Legend over at the Congressional Black Caucus, and of course he's a musical superstar, and he talked about the fact that he himself, along with Common, are out trying to actively get people to the voting polls, and they're already starting.
Yeah.
And on the Republican side, of course, there are some Republicans for Kamala Harris speaking here as well. Chris, back to you.
Kelly, you've been speaking to high-profile attendees there. What stood out to you the most from everyone you've spoken to? I've seen some of your interviews.
I'm sorry, say that one more time. It's a little bit loud in here. I'm sorry, Chris.
That's okay. You've been speaking to a lot of high-profile guests there at the DNC. Have any of them stood out to you? What stands out to you the most?
I think what stood out for me, well, actually, when I spoke to Speaker Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker Emeritus, she went on to state that her hope for America is that America can break out of these divisions that we have. Now, she believes that Kamala Harris is the one who can do that. The other person that I spoke to, which was here in our NTD booth on Media Row, was Congressman Bobby Scott, someone I've known for 30 years. Congressman Scott is the ranking member of the Education and Workforce Committee in Congress. And he spoke from the aspect of we must have a bipartisan outreach for all Americans, particularly in education, as well as in workforce development and labor. A lot of the key issues here are based on the economy, based on fairness to veterans, based on fairness to Democrats and Republicans alike. And Congressman Scott was very pointed about that we have to make sure that we do the best for our nation in a bipartisan fashion. That is what some Democrats here really want to accomplish, moving people to the middle of the aisle rather than moving them to the two extremes of both parties and not seeing any common ground.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what other kind of interviews you do going forward over the next day or two. Now, 200 social media influencers have exclusive access to the DNC. I guess Democrats are trying to tap content creators like these for their campaign. Are you seeing any social media influencers active on the convention floor?
Absolutely, they're very active. They're very young and vibrant, and they have a love for politics that you can sense the energy in them. In fact, there's a creators lounge here, and I've gone in there to talk to some of them and break some bread with them. And look, these are social media influencers who realize that they have a stake in this country, and many of the people. In fact, Michelle Obama talked about last night. She said one thing that has to be made perfectly clear about the creators, as well as the media, and as well as people who are here to support Kamala Harris, because there are people who do not support her on the other side. But she wanted to say we have to get beyond the memes and the social media, and it's really about the ground game, getting people out to vote, which is why she challenged them to not just sit back and watch this happen, but to get actively engaged in making it happen, getting out the vote, and again, getting back to her theme, do something. And that's what the creatives are doing. They're doing something through their power of influence. And so it was a unique way of the DNC to reach out to Gen Z and other creatives. And also unique, during the roll call last night, when Little John actually was part of the roll call, basically stating turn up and basically turn out to vote.
Kelly, I'm wondering how confident are people there that Harris can beat Trump this election? I mean, that's what this really all comes down to, of course.
Glad you asked that. This morning, as I was talking about John Legend, also at that event for the Congressional Black Caucus at the McCormick Place, which is about 3 miles from the United Center, DNC Chairman Jamie Harrison addressed that particular group of people, and he said that he is very confident. In fact, he gave a vision. He cast a vision, if you will, for January 2025, and he, along with John Legend stating, our Project 2025 is to see Kamala Harris standing on the steps of the United States Capitol with Supreme Court Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson holding her hand on a Bible owned by Frederick Douglass, and having Kamala Harris, perhaps dressed in white or beige, raising her hand to swear to defend and protect and serve the United States and the United States people. So that's the vision that's coming from the Democratic chair, and that is palpable throughout this entire situation. Of course, this is a convention, and this is why they come together. Just as in the Republican convention in Milwaukee, they all came together. So both conventions are energizing and trying to keep people engaged. The real test will, of course, take place on September 10th, when Vice President Kamala Harris faces former President Donald Trump in a debate.
Yeah.
And one other footnote to this, Chris. Donald Trump was asked about last night's speech, because, he's crisscrossing the nation to try to bring some attention to himself, because all focus has been on the DNC this week. But he was asked about the presentation or the speeches given by the rock stars of the Democratic Party, Barack Obama and Michelle Obama. And he said, look, they're nice people. I really respect them. And they went on to criticize their foreign policy, but he said, I like them. Now, that's the first time in that I can remember that the former President Donald Trump has actually had something nice to say about Michelle Obama and Barack Obama.
Kelly Wright, I wanted to say thank you so much. We're looking forward to your reporting there the rest of today and tomorrow. Very exciting seeing everybody on the ground there at the DNC. Thank you again.
We're all working very hard, all together.
Cheers.
Former President Trump is delivering national security-related remarks in Asheboro, North Carolina today. Let's tune in.
today, 'cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless.
So there's former President Donald Trump at this rally in North Carolina. First outdoor event really since the attempted assassination on him in Pennsylvania, and you can see he's surrounded by bulletproof glass there.
That's right. Let's tune in. He's beginning his speech now after a walk on stage.
Low and fast. That was moving along. That was pretty low. Just want to thank JD. He's doing a fantastic job, and I want to thank North Carolina. I love North Carolina. I love them. 76 days from now, we're going to win this state, and we're going to win the White House, that beautiful, beautiful building.
And we're going to move on from former President Trump speaking there in North Carolina as the Democratic National Convention unfolds in day 3, providing a bit of a contrast to what the Democrats are doing there in Chicago.
Yeah, absolutely right. And Trump's got some allies talking at his tower in Chicago as well about some Republican policies and in contrast to the Democratic ones.
Exactly. We are getting into the meat of the 2024 election cycle. It's only going to get more exciting from here. Coming up next, we have the highlights of the Democratic National Convention last night, including speeches by former President Barack Obama and his wife, former First Lady Michelle Obama. Stay tuned.
The 7th NTD International Piano Competition will take place at the Kaufman Music Center in New York City. Pianists from around the world will come together to revive the great piano masterpieces. Join us on this uplifting journey. The semifinals, finals, and the winner's concert will be open to audiences and live streamed from October 17th to the 19th. Get tickets now at 212-501-3330.
One in 5 children worldwide are faced with the reality of living without food. No family dinners, no special treats, not enough energy to play. All around the world, hunger is affecting children's physical and mental health. Toddlers are suffering from acute malnutrition, which stunts their growth. Kids are forced to drop out of school so they can help support their families. Conflict, inflation, and climate have ignited the worst famine in our lifetime. And we are fed up. Fed up that hunger devours dreams. Fed up that hunger destroys joy. Fed up with the fact that hunger eats childhood. Help us feed the futures of children all over the world by visiting givetosave.org. For as little as $10 a month, you can join Save the Children as we support children and families in desperate need of our help. Now is the time to get fed up and give back. When you join the cause, your $10 monthly donation can help communities in need of life-saving treatments and nutrients, prevent children from dropping out of school, support our work with communities and governments to help children go from short-term surviving to long-term thriving. And now, thanks to special government grants, every dollar you give can multiply up to 10 times the impact. That means more food, water, medicine, and help for kids around the world. You'll also receive a free tote bag to share your support for children in need. Having your childhood eaten away by hunger is unimaginable. Get fed up. Call us now or visit givetosave.org today.
Welcome back. We've now gotten back the signal for former President Trump's rally in Asheboro, North Carolina, where he's making national security related remarks. Let's tune in.
And Neil Jackson, State Rep. Neil Jackson. Thank you very much. Thank you, Neil. RNC Chairman Michael Whatley. What a job he's doing. What a job he's doing. And North Carolina GOP Chairman Jason Simmons, who's been a friend of ours for a long time. Where's Jason? Nice tall character right here. Thank you very much, Jason. And somebody that's been with me from day one, he's a real general. You know, we have the real generals, and we have the fake woke generals that did so poorly in Afghanistan, should have all been fired. But this is a real general, Keith Kellogg. Right, Keith? And this is a great group. It's good to see you, Keith. He's been with me from before day one, right? He said, that guy should run. We got to get him to run. I like those guys. They were here before I ran. You know, there's quite a few of them, too. We have the front row, Joes, you know that? And very importantly, we have the most magnificent women. First time, you know, they travel all over the country to be with us for rallies. They're at close to a couple of hundred rallies. I don't know what their husbands are doing about this. This is a little crazy. Look how beautiful. And they're from North Carolina. And for a change, they don't have to travel so far, right? How far are you from here? 2 hours is nothing. It's a pretty big state, actually. Thank you very much. As always, you are special, special people, great women. They love our country. Before we begin, I want to address the massive scandal around the revised job numbers that were just announced this morning, a little while ago, just before I came up. I got to see them. And it really isn't a revision. It's a total lie. Total lie. There's never been any revision like this. They wanted it to come out after the election, but somehow it got leaked. It got leaked. Government leaks, too. The Harris-Biden administration has been caught fraudulently manipulating job statistics to hide the true extent of the economic ruin that they've inflicted on America. The new data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics shows that the administration padded the numbers with an extra, listen to this one, 818,000 jobs that don't exist. So they said they existed, and they never did exist. They built them up so that they could say what a wonderful job they're doing. No, we've never had numbers like this. They don't exist. They thought they could do it sometime after, you know, we have an election coming up very quickly, but they wanted this to come out after November 5th when it wouldn't have meant so much, but it came out a little early, so there's a patriot in there someplace, right? The real numbers are much worse than that, and Comrade Kamala, you know, she's comrade, the most radical left person ever to run for a high political office in our country. Gets another 4 years, millions of jobs, and it'll vanish overnight. She gets 4 more years, you're going to see jobs vanish. Millions and millions will vanish, and inflation will completely destroy our country. We'll have inflation worse than they've given us. You know, when I gave it to them, I had virtually no inflation. And now their number's up to 22, 23%, but their real number is probably 40 to 50% because a lot of the things in their numbers aren't included. I saw another one where the FBI releases crime statistics, and they weren't that bad. And then they left out little things like New York, Chicago. They left out various areas, and that wasn't so good. Your life savings will be totally wiped out. And if you put somebody like that in there with him, how about him? How about him? She'll destroy our country just like she destroyed San Francisco, just like she destroyed California. With the Trump victory, we will once again have the greatest economy in history. We're going to do things that are going to make us so great so fast. We're going to bring it back. We're going to make America strong again. We're going to make America great again. Going to be fantastic. It's going to be fantastic. So I just want to thank you very much for your support, because I've always had fantastic support from you. Thank you. Thank you very much. We have a job to do. You know, we have a job to do. We had some very good polls this morning, despite their charade. I call it the party, the Democrats' party. Do you know 5 people in Chicago were killed in the last little while since that charade that they have going on? They mentioned my name, I think, 271 times. They mentioned the economy like 12 times. They mentioned the border, maybe none. They don't talk about the border. Our great border czar doesn't talk about the border. But they mentioned me more than any other category. I'm now a category. They had me down today as a category. That's all they talk about. Trump. We've driven them crazy. They have Trump derangement syndrome. We've driven them crazy, and they should be driven crazy. They've done a terrible job for our country in every single way. There's not a thing they've done well except cheat and lie. They lie about stats. No, they lied about the crime numbers. The crime numbers didn't look bad. Then they found out that many of the worst places weren't included in the numbers. And that was done by the FBI, which is sad. 4 years ago, our country was strong and respected like never before. Our allies admired us. Our enemies feared us because everyone knew that as an American president, I was all about putting America first. That's true. Under my leadership, we rebuilt the United States military, created Space Force, and we made our allies pay their fair share and their fair dues. You know, we went to NATO, we say, you're not paying, you got to pay. If you remember, President Bush would go and he'd make a speech. Obama would go, he'd make a speech. They all made speeches. This one didn't even make a speech, this last one. But I went, I said, nobody's paying. You got to pay. And they did, paid hundreds of billions of dollars. They said, well, does that mean you won't support us if we don't pay? I said, that's what it means. I had to say that. I got a lot of heat for that. People, the fake news. Oh, that's a lot of fake news. Oh, that's a lot of fake news. No, the fake news gave me a hard time for that. The fake news was saying, what a terrible thing to say to our allies. Our allies weren't paying. And I said, you got to pay. We were paying for everybody. So they take advantage of us on trade, and then we also pay for their military. That somehow doesn't work. So they had to pay. They paid hundreds of billions of dollars. But I said to them, no, that means I will not protect you. I will not protect you. They said, sir, if we're attacked by Russia, will you protect us? Used to be Soviet Union, now Russia. Will you protect us? I said, are you paid? No, let's assume we're not paid. Then you're delinquent, right? Well, yes, that's an old real estate term. You're delinquent, yes. No, we will not protect you. The press went crazy that I said, and you know what? If I would have said the other way, they would have never paid. Hundreds of billions were sent into NATO. But we defeated ISIS. We killed the world's top terrorists. We secured our borders. We achieved energy independence. We stood up to China. We protected Israel. We made peace in the Middle East with the Abraham Accords, and more. We did things like nobody ever heard of, and we brought our troops mostly back home. We didn't start any wars for 79 years it was before. We didn't start wars. 79, 80 years. Everybody said, oh, he's going to start wars with his attitude. No, my attitude kept us out of wars. I stopped wars with phone calls. Russia should have never happened. With Ukraine, would have never happened if I were president. Would have never happened. Nope, there was no talk of that. Would have never, ever happened with Putin. Would have never happened. And Israel, October 7th, would have never happened. Iran would have never done that. They had very little money at that point. Now they're rich as hell. But Biden allowed that to happen. And Kamala, where's Biden? What happened to Biden? Where is he? He's on a beach. He's on a beach. You know, he's got somebody that thinks he looks great in a bathing suit. He likes to go to a beach. How do you leave here and go on a beach? You can't do it. There are things you just don't do. People don't want to see you in a bathing suit. Walks badly. It's hard to walk in the sand. You know, he has a hard time lifting his feet through the sand. And then he grabs the chair. The chair is meant for old people to lift and young kids to lift, like, 4-year-old kids, right? And he can't lift it. He needs a little help. The whole thing is crazy. How we ever got that is crazy. And what happened to our country with inflation and with disrespect from all over the world, and all these wars are starting all over the place. And we're very close to a third world war, and don't kid yourself, because they are laughing, but they're not laughing too much. You're a little worried about a certain person winning the election. We had some very good polls today. And if that happens, you're not going to have any third world wars. Every American was safer under President Trump. In fact, the entire world was safer when I sat behind that beautiful Resolute desk in the Oval Office. You know, I heard the other day, for the first time, I heard Biden say, the beautiful Resolute desk. He never said that before. They copy me. When I say we're a nation in decline, guys are copying me. Then they say they shouldn't say that, but they thought the words were beautiful. But they copy me all the time. In that case, it was Republicans that were copying me because they happen to be right, so I don't mind if a Republican copies me. Any of you guys want to copy me. But it's a sad thing to have to say, but they copy me. The Resolute desk, he never mentioned that. He doesn't even know what the hell the Resolute desk is. Exactly 3 years ago this month, the weakness and incompetence of Kamala Harris and crooked Joe Biden delivered the most humiliating event in the history of our country and one of the biggest military disasters in the history of the world, as far as I'm concerned. No one will ever forget the horrifying images of their catastrophic retreat from Afghanistan. Desperate Afghans fell to their deaths from the wheels of U.S. cargo planes that were 3,000 feet up in the air. Bloodthirsty terrorists poured out of the prisons after Biden and Harris surrendered Bagram, one of the largest air military bases anywhere in the world. We spent billions and billions of dollars building it many years ago. And, you know, it was important to keep it. I was never leaving that. I would have been out faster than them. I said, that's not, we were there for almost 21 years. And I said, what are we doing? What are we doing here? And we had no soldiers killed for 18 months while I was there because they knew, don't play around with our soldiers. They were killing them. They were killing them under Obama. Did you see Barack Hussein Obama last night? Take little shots. He was taking shots at your president. And so was Michelle. You know, they always say, sure, please stick to policy. Don't get personal. And yet they're getting personal all night long, these people. Do I still have to stick to policy? Sir, you must stick to policy. You'll win it on the border. You'll win it with inflation. You'll win it with your great military that you built that they gave away $85 billion worth of it in Afghanistan. Sir, you're going to win it on crime. The crime is running through the streets like never before. You're going to win it on all of these things, and maybe especially, I think two things, the economy, inflation, because I view them together, what they've done to inflation, and they caused it with energy. What they did with energy is so stupid. If we were there, our energy, we would be so dominant all over the world right now. We were already energy independent. I made you energy independent, but we would be energy dominant. We'd be paying back debt. We'd be reducing your taxes still further. We gave you the largest tax cuts ever. And a lot of good things were going to happen, but now we're just going to have to sort of call it a delay of 4 years. But these people don't have any idea what they're doing. You had 13 heroic U.S. service members were tragically and needlessly killed. I got to know a lot of the relatives, friends, and mothers and fathers of those 13 people. 45 others were horrifically wounded, and $85 billion worth of the best military equipment anywhere in the world was handed over to these people. In fact, Afghanistan is now one of the largest arms merchants anywhere in the world. Did you know that? They're selling our equipment at tremendous prices. They're selling our beautiful. We had 70,000 armored trucks, many of them armored trucks and vehicles. Think of this. We had 700,000 rifles and guns. I actually say, what the hell did they need so many for? 700,000 rifles and guns. We had goggles, brand new, right out of the box. You know, they didn't fight at night because they never had goggles, right? Good fighters. They never had goggles. Now they have brand new goggles, all left by the Biden-Harris administration. Gave them billions and billions of dollars, just gave it to them, and now they sell that equipment because they don't need 700,000 rifles. They need 20,000, little difference. They don't need 70,000 vehicles. They need 500 vehicles. you have to ask yourself, who bought all that stuff in the first place? Who bought it all? How disgusted we're all when we see, all of us are, when we see 3 days ago when we viewed their parade, our military equipment running down the middle of their main avenue, brand new, beautiful, armor-plated trucks, tanks, and vehicles running down the middle, and they're all celebrating because we have stupid people running our government, and she'll be worse than Biden because he wasn't really a believer, but she's a radical left believer. She ruined San Francisco. She ruined California. And if she gets in, our country doesn't have a chance. This calamity is on Comrade Kamala Harris's shoulders. I think her name will be Comrade because I think that's the most accurate name. You know, I've been looking for a name. People are saying, sir, don't do it. You know all my names. They've all worked. They've all been very successful. And I really didn't find one with her. Sir, she's a woman. I said, so is Hillary Clinton. I called her Crooked Hillary. So nobody complained about that, right? Right? Mr. Governor, nobody complained about that. No, I called her Crooked Hillary. I call people names. I call crazy Nancy Pelosi crazy because she is. She's nuts. You know, Biden is really angry. You know, he's very angry. He was so angry the other night, he's like seething. You ever see a guy make a speech? It's such anger and so uncomfortable, just shouting, yeah. But he's terrible. He's just terrible. Should have never been there. We all know that. Should have never been there. What they've done to this country is incredible. But she bragged that she would be the last person in the room, and she was. She was the last person in the room with Biden when the two of them decided to pull the troops out of Afghanistan. And by the way, pulling them out was absolutely right. I was going to do it. I'm the one that got the soldiers down to 5,000 people. I was going to do it, but we were going to get out last. You don't pull the soldiers out first. You let the soldiers stay last. And the head of the Taliban respected me, Abdul. I had conversations with him. After my conversations, not one soldier in 18 months was killed, but you pull the soldiers out last. Milley and these guys, you know, we have great generals, but Milley and Mattis and these guys, they didn't know what the hell. I call them television generals. The television generals are no good, but the generals that defeated ISIS, for me, were great. We have a great military. But she had the final vote. She had the final say, and she was all for it. You take the soldiers out. If I took that young person right there, about 5 or 6 years old, beautiful young person, and if I said, I gave little details, like about 30 seconds worth of details. Would you take the military out first or last? Sir, I'd take the military out last. But they took it out first. And then we left hostages, we left all of the equipment, we left everything. And we left Bagram, and now China is occupying Bagram. Bagram being 1 hour away from where China makes its nuclear weapons. Wouldn't it have been nice to have our big, fat, beautiful base? It was probably built there for that reason. But China 1 hour away, and now China is occupying that massive, big base. Some of the biggest runways in the world. They can hold heavier loads than any runways in the world. Under my leadership, we were getting out of Afghanistan, but we were going to get out with dignity, pride, and with strength. When I left office, we had not lost a single service member in the combat in Afghanistan in more than 18 months. And then we had that horrible day where we lost so many, and so many were so badly hurt. Arms, legs gone, face just obliterated. We lost so many great people that day. Nobody talks about the people that were so badly injured. They never mention them. I always mention them. All over the world, our adversaries knew that America was not to be trifled with when I was your commander-in-chief. And you know, it's very interesting. If you look at Hungary, very strong country, very strong leader, Viktor Orban, he said the only thing that's going to save the whole world is Trump has to be president again. We had no problems. We had no problems. He said, we had no problems. I don't use the term, but he did. He said, China was afraid of him. Russia was afraid of him. They always said, oh, I was so friendly to Russia. I'm the one that stopped the Russian pipeline called Nord Stream 2. Nobody ever, the biggest development they ever had to feed oil all over Europe, I stopped it. And then Biden comes in and he gives them everything. He gave them the pipeline. They built the pipeline, but I stopped it. Putin said, that's the worst thing that's ever happened to us. I said, I'm sorry, I have to do it. And he approves it right away. And then they say, Trump was not strong on Russia. I think they got it wrong. Putin actually said, if you weren't strong, I'd like to find out how bad would you be if you were strong, because you were brutal. But, you know, I got along with him. It's good to get along with these countries. I got along with China. That wouldn't have happened. What's happening right now, they're planning an attack on Taiwan. There's no question about that. That wouldn't have happened. It wasn't going to happen. They knew that you weren't allowed to do that. Putin would have never gone into Ukraine. Israel would have never been attacked. It's a sad, sad situation. So many people are dead. So many people are gone. So many cities. You look at Ukraine, those cities are just wiped off the face of the earth. They're outside of Kiev and a couple of others. They're basically just flattened. Far more people dead than they let you know. It's like your numbers that were released fraudulently today. Far more people dead in that war than anybody would know. When those big buildings come tumbling down, hit with rockets, so ridiculous. There's nothing left. It's so ridiculous. But since the Afghanistan catastrophe, it's been open season on America and our allies. I really believe that the Afghan disaster, what happened, the stupidity and the way we pulled out and the bedlam and all of that, it would have been very smooth. We were going to get out with strength and dignity. But when Putin saw that, he said, wow, those people don't know what they're doing. They're overrated. And he went in, and the same thing happened with Iran. Iran was not going to play with us. And now Iran is a rich nation. They have $300 billion. They had no money. And in 3.5 years, they made $300 billion they have right now. They made it all in 3.5 years. They had none when I left. And we would have made a fair deal with them. They can't have a nuclear weapon. Very simple. You can't have a nuclear weapon. Other than that, we want you to have great lives. But I do hear they're after me, but, you know, that's the way it is. Look, I'm here for you, and I'm here even for the world. We want to stop world wars because the equipment is so devastating now. A world war is obliteration. We can't have a world war. Every dictator, tyrant, and terrorist on the planet knows that they can get away with murder under Kamala and Crooked Joe. Kidnappers are getting millions and millions of dollars, but now they're getting billions. They're getting billions. What did you get for the 4 people that we released? Sure, they got $6 billion. What is $6 billion? Does anyone know what that means? $6 billion. They got $6 billion. People get kidnapped and, you know, they ask for like, how about $1,000? How about $500? They got $6 billion from these idiots. And you know what happens? When that happens, a lot of people are going to get kidnapped because they say, we're dealing with stupid people. A lot of people. We had 59 people that were hostage. Some in North Korea. That's about as tough as it gets. We got people out without paying for anything. We never gave money. We didn't want to give money. If we gave money, all they do is they go around kidnapping everybody. These people give, not only do they give $6 billion, they got the Prince of Death out. He's the #1 arms merchant in the world. Russia got him as part of one of the deals. The #1 arms merchant in the world. We got a couple of people. But, you know, why were they there? And why did they do what they did? But they got some of the most criminal, the toughest, meanest criminals anywhere in the world. On top of that, we paid them billions and billions of dollars. We're run by very stupid people. I'd like to use a different word. I'd like to use a much more sophisticated word, but there's no word I can think of. Incompetent. How about incompetent? As a result, peace in Europe has been shattered by the largest European land war since the fall of Nazi Germany. This is the largest war there's been, and this war is going to escalate and escalate. When, if, but when. I have to always say if, you know, because they cheat. I would say when if they didn't cheat, but they cheat. That's the one thing. They're great at cheating in elections. If we win, I'll get that thing settled before I take the office. I'll get it settled as president-elect. I'll get that war stopped. with Russia. Yeah, we'll get that stopped. Ukraine and Russia, we're going to get it stopped, and quickly. It'll be done before I get to office. It would not have happened if I was president. It wasn't going to happen in the Middle East. The Jewish people have suffered the worst atrocities and deadliest attacks since the Holocaust. There's no question about that. The United States has been forced to abandon more embassies under Comrade Kamala than at any time in our history. We're running out. It's not like we're leaving. We're being run out of these embassies that cost us hundreds of millions of dollars to build. You got to see these embassies in the middle of nowhere in a country you've never even heard of. They spent $900 million to build an embassy. The whole thing is crazy. The world is on fire, and Kamala and Biden have marched us to the brink of World War III. That's what we're in. I think, General, you would probably agree. You're one of the experts, I would think, right? I don't even talk to you about that lately. It's so out of control, I don't even have to bother. I just say, look, take a look. But one of the great experts, and we're on the brink. That's why this November Americans are going to tell Kamala Harris, that we've had enough. We can't take it anymore. You're doing a terrible job. Comrade Harris, you're fired. Get out of here. You're fired. You're no good. You're fired. Get him out of here. All you have to do is take a look at San Francisco. Look at the job she did. She had one policy. If you steal less than $1,000, basically $950 to be exact, I want to be accurate for purposes of reporters. The fake news media, they want accuracy. They don't have to be accurate, but we have to be accurate. But if you steal less than $950, they basically leave you alone. So I have guys going in robbing stores with a calculator. Let's see, this is $100. Did you notice? This is not going to happen in North Carolina, I don't think, is it? No. Let's see, that's $100, that's $59. Bing, 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 bing. Stop. We don't want to go over $950. They walk out with it. Nobody does a thing. Starting the moment I lift my hand from the Bible after taking the oath of office, I will move to restore America to maximum strength and return the world to peace. We're going to return the world to peace. And mostly I can do it with a telephone call. You know, we don't have to send troops. I can do it with a telephone call. You go to war with another country that's friendly to us or even not friendly to us. You're not going to do business in the United States, and we're going to charge you 100% tariffs. And all of a sudden, the president or prime minister or dictator or whoever the hell is running the country says to me, sir, we won't go to war. I talked this world out of a lot of wars with telephone calls. I don't have to send in the troops. One of my most urgent priorities will be to quickly rebuild the readiness and spirit of the United States Armed Forces. And we had it built. We rebuilt it. We rebuilt the whole military, but it was decimated under this group of stupid people. You know, we had so much. When I came in, we had no ammunition. Did you know that? Remember? I used to talk about it. And I said, if it's true, which it was, why would you say that? We had people on television. Well, the United States has no ammunition. You know, some things you just keep to yourself, right? Do you remember from North Carolina, do you remember I used to talk about that all the time? Those are my best witnesses, those ladies. There's about 40 of them. They're all over the place. And they're always perfectly coiffed and perfectly dressed. They're beautiful and they're great. But no, I used to talk all the time. If you have no bullets, I can ask this group of leaders, you don't talk about it, but you get the bullets really fast, right? So within a year, I had so much that our warehouses were stocked to the gills. We never had so much. I bought so much, missiles, everything. I rebuilt our military. But that's been all dissipated now again because we give it away to everybody and for nothing. I mean, they don't do anything for us. We don't get anything. We don't even get a pledge that we'll pay you back someday if we have the money. How about that? Pay you back someday if we have the money. You know, I sponsor athletes sometimes. If I see somebody that I like in sports, I sponsor some golfers. Usually doesn't typically work out. I don't know if you know, it's like a 5,000 to 1 shot, but I'm good at that stuff and I can see talent. And I'll give them a few $1,000s. I'll give them $50,000. I'll say, you know, you're really good. You could make it. Why aren't you trying out for the tour? Sir, I have no money. I have to give lessons. I have no money. He said, you're too good to give lessons. You can be a tour player. I said, sir, I don't have any money. I said, here's $50,000. And here's the deal. If you do well, you pay me back with no interest. Just good luck. If you don't do well, which you probably won't, because it's very hard, they say the worst is a boxer. If you sponsor a boxer, they're all great. They're winning all their fights. And then they turn professional, and they go in. And this goes with the UFC, run by Dana White, one of the greats of all time, which has really taken over for boxing. But it's the same thing, and people sponsor people, and they get what they get. But the worst is that what's wrong? Oh. A doctor, please. It is very hot here, I noticed. It's very hot. And a lot of the people waited for days to get here, so I understand it. Take your time, doctor. Take your time. Thank you. Yeah. Take your time, please.
Well, it looks like there's some kind of medical emergency there at the Trump rally in North Carolina there.
Yeah, that's right. Trump did mention that it is very hot today out there, and people have been standing in the crowds for quite a while. And we'll stay on the feed for a little longer just to see what happens.
Of course, Trump won't miss an opportunity for an excellent press opportunity. He seems to be greeting the person who perhaps was facing some kind of heat exhaustion. A good moment there for Trump. And he's coming back to the stage now. Looks like he might resume his speech in just a moment.
Thank you very much.
There we go.
You know, they come 2 days, 3 days early, and it's a lot of stress. We lose them. The only ones we don't lose are front row Joes. I don't know what they have going. They have something going here, Governor. Thank you very much. Thanks, Doctor. But America's blessed with the greatest military in the world, but our men and women in uniform have been betrayed by radical left politicians and some generals, and at the top, they're woke. They're woke. We don't want woke generals. We want generals that know how to win, and we have them. We proved that when we wiped out ISIS, didn't we? Proved it. Sir, it'll take 5 years. We did it in three weeks. I think we did it in 3 weeks. We have the greatest military in the world, but you need the great leaders. Otherwise, your military can never be great. Everywhere I go, soldiers and veterans tell me how angry they are that not one person has been held accountable for the Afghanistan catastrophe. He never fired anybody. You know, I fire a lot of people when they don't do a good job. Then they come back and write books. You know, they hate you, but that's okay. When you don't fire people, they never write books, you know. But I fired a lot of people. I wasn't happy with their service. I wasn't happy with the job they did, and I fire them. I let them go. I mean, I'm working for you. I'm not doing this for myself. But when you fire them, they always come back with something. And now nobody's ever been in the position where, you know, they get offered all sorts of money from the fake news and everything else, and fame. We're going to make you famous. All you have to do is make up some stories about Trump. But people don't seem to care. It's phony stuff, phony, horrible. They're lightweights. They're terrible people. You know, when I came, don't forget, I didn't know anybody in Washington. I'm President of the United States. I'm going down Pennsylvania Avenue with the biggest load of military and police and motorcycles and everything you've ever seen. And I didn't know anybody. I said to my wife, I don't know a lot of people, but the people I know, I got recommendations from a lot of good people, well-meaning people. Some were good. Most were great. But we had some bad ones too. But now I know them all in Washington. I know the good ones, the weak ones, guys like this. I know the weak ones and the bad ones, General. We know the dumb ones and the smart ones, don't we? We know them all. But the voters will hold Kamala and Joe accountable for this November when I take office, and they're going to be held accountable for what they've done to this country. Right? Thank you. I will ask for the resignations of every single senior...
That's former President Trump speaking at a campaign rally in Asheboro, North Carolina. It's his first outdoor rally after the assassination attempt on his life. You can see, actually, if you look closely, there's some bulletproof glass in front of him, creating some kind of reflected images, protecting him from potential assassins.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Chris. And really today was a speech about national security, really. He also briefly mentioned the news that came out very recently about the extra 818,000 jobs that had been over-reported on from the past year or so.
That's right. From the 12-month period between March 2024 and March 2023, the number of jobs that were reported, the number of jobs increase that were reported was actually lower by 818,000. So it went from 2.9 million to 2.1 million or so.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Thank you for that clarification. Also, a lot of mention about his previous policies when he was, former President Trump, when he was in office, especially about NATO. Also mentioned some of the policies of the current administration and some of his criticisms for that.
Right, certainly a lot of criticism on former President Trump. He mentioned his name being cited at the DNC many, many times. I haven't read that article, but you can continue watching Trump speak on our website at ntd.com if you want to stay tuned for that.
Coming up in the next hour, why fashion brand Shein is suing Temu. A legal battle escalating between two Chinese e-commerce giants. We'll have that story and more after the break.
Being prepared is a part of who you are, but it's especially important in the case of a disaster. Be informed about possible emergencies in your area. Make a plan that covers where you'll go in an emergency. Build a kit with the things you need to survive. There's no one more capable of planning for your situation than you. Start your plan today. Go to ready.gov/myplan.
There's a whirlwind of emotion and activity going on in this painting. And there's chaos all around and threat from below. The wolves surrounding her, and they're anything but unmoved. They're moving all the time, and we sense that. But this little girl remains unmoved.
She's in quite a perilous situation, but she's completely strong and serene, and she's actually meditating. It was very, very well liked because no matter what culture or what sort of walk of life you're from, I think people, they see it and they immediately understand what that energy, what that message is, and they're drawn to it because everybody kind of needs a little bit of that in their own life, of, you know, the steadfast calmness and something to hold on to. It's definitely an inner peace in the midst of something very chaotic. And for a lot of people right now, the whole world is very, very chaotic. So I guess that's another reason why so many people are very drawn to this.
Presenting the heritage of traditional Chinese martial arts, fostering martial ethics, and reviving the true tradition. The 2024 NTD International Traditional Chinese Martial Arts Competition will be held August 30th to September 2nd at the Village School in New Jersey. Semifinals and finals tickets are on sale. To buy tickets, please call 1-888-477-9228.
Hi, I'm Smokey Bear, and I made an assistant to help you out, because only you can prevent wildfires.
Hey, Assistant Smokey Bear, call me Papa Bear, because I'm grilling up dinner. Do you get it?
Yes, good job.
So, what should I do with all these coals?
Don't just toss them out. Put them in a metal container because those embers can start a wildfire.
I understand. The stakes are high.
Ha 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 ha.
See, Smokey thinks I'm funny.
Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Fiona G.
And I'm Chris Beers. It's day 3 of the Democratic National Convention. NTD's Kelly Wright is on the ground in Chicago. What to expect tonight and what we saw yesterday. Also, candidate Trump and his running mate J.D. Vance holding rallies on national security in North Carolina. It's the first outdoor event since the attempted assassination. We will take you there.
And why fashion brand Shein is suing Temu, a legal battle escalating between two Chinese e-commerce giants.
The U.S. added far fewer jobs than initially reported over the past year. New data revealing the largest downward revision to payrolls since the global financial crisis.
Ford takes a near $2 billion hit as its electric vehicle rollout gets rolled back. Its EV business is on track to lose $5 billion this year.
Digital price tags are spreading, letting stores change prices with a click. Will they price gouge consumers? NTD investigates.
Grand fireworks in Budapest last night, marking the end of celebrations for Hungary's National Day. We take a look at footage from the celebration.
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
Welcome. Now we'll go to NTD's Jason Blair, who was at a talk earlier when Congressman Mike Waltz spoke about national security. Jason, what are some takeaways from the talk?
Yes, right now I'm at the Democratic National Convention, but earlier today, just a few miles away at the Trump Tower, Mike Waltz, along with the Trump campaign team, did talk about national security. Some of the things he addressed was, he said right now terrorist groups have indeed been coming through the open border and, quote, they are here now. He brought up the FBI's director's comment about how an attack is imminent, and maybe not if, but necessarily it's going to be when. He did say that ISIS and other groups are operating again, and I do have a clip from Waltz's talk earlier today. Have a look.
Terrorism is making a roaring comeback. Al-Qaeda is resurgent. They are developing training camps. ISIS is resurgent. There have been 6 plots thwarted in Europe. Well, 7 now if we count the Taylor Swift concerts.
And Waltz also brought up concerns of what he's calling a military recruiting crisis. He said that the military is at its lowest numbers that it's been since World War II. And he went on to compare Trump's national security record with the current administration's record the past couple of years and expressed his concern that the same things will continue under a Harris-Walz administration if they are indeed elected.
And what from what you saw, how dangerous is the state of the world right now, given all these terrorists coming across the border, especially in the U.S.?
Well, I know that Walz did bring up a couple of incidents that they had over in Europe where they did apprehend some of the terrorist attacks. And in the clip, he also mentioned the concert that they did apprehend. But he's just saying the open border policies have really got to change. And he said the only way to do that is by electing Trump this coming election.
Okay, and I want to switch gears just a bit. The DNC is underway right now. It's day 3. We're expecting Tim Walz, Kamala Harris's VP pick, to make a formal nomination speech. Can you give us a bit of an update on what to expect today?
Yeah, like you said, it is day 3. They do have a lot of big names lined up today. I got a list earlier. Representative Hakeem Jeffries, Representative Nancy Pelosi will be here today. Governor Wes Moore, Governor Josh Shapiro are scheduled to speak. Former President Bill Clinton is scheduled to speak later on today. And then, of course, as you said, Governor Tim Walz will be formally accepting the Democratic Party's nomination. And then just an update, it looked like yesterday the speaker schedule did go a lot better than Monday. Monday it went on a little late into the night than expected. So we should expect the same thing tonight for things being on track. Back to you.
All right, Jason Blair, thank you so much. And with the second night of the convention behind us, NTD's Daniel Monahan has the highlights, including speeches by both former President Barack Obama and his wife, former First Lady Michelle Obama.
Michelle Obama.
Former First Lady Michelle Obama received a hero's welcome at the Democratic National Convention in Chicago last night. She said something magical was in the air.
It's the contagious power of hope.
She also lashed out at former President Trump, criticizing his character and comparing him to Vice President Harris.
Only Kamala Harris truly understands the unseen labor and unwavering commitment that has always made America great.
The former First Lady was followed by former President Obama, the pair sharing a tender moment on stage.
I don't know about you, but I'm feeling fired up.
Obama said the country has a chance to elect someone who spent her entire life trying to give people the same chances America gave her.
Someone who sees you and hears you and will get up every single day and fight for you.
Obama praised President Biden for putting his own ambition aside for the sake of the country.
And I am proud to call him my president, but I am even prouder to call him my friend.
Yeah! Atlanta-born rapper Lil Jon helped introduce Georgia during the roll call, singing to the beat of his song, Turn Down for What?
We're not going back. We're not going back. Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders.
Senator Bernie Sanders spoke at the convention, calling on Americans to summon the courage to stand up to wealth and power.
And deliver justice for people at home and abroad.
Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer said he worked with Harris when she was still a senator.
I saw a leader who was fearless, who stood up for middle-class families like the one she was raised in.
Outside the convention, anti-Israel protesters charged a line of officers. At least 4 were handcuffed and led away by law enforcement. Protesters used derogatory terms toward the police and chanted slogans denouncing the DNC. Some demonstrators set an American and Israeli flag on fire in the street. More than a dozen demonstrators were arrested yesterday during a protest that began outside the Israeli consulate. Police say they also arrested 13 people on Monday. They added additional security fences at a Chicago park where protesters clashed with law enforcement. Chicago Police Superintendent Larry Snelling said officers were sprayed with an irritant.
We had objects thrown at officers, water bottles, water thrown on officers.
Snelling says no major injuries were reported. In Milwaukee, Vice President Harris and her running mate, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, took the stage as she was reaffirmed as the Democratic nominee at the convention. Harris said the race for president will be a nail-biter to the end and would take hard work.
But we like hard work. Hard work is good work.
Day 3 of the convention is today. Walz will give his acceptance speech as vice presidential nominee. Former President Bill Clinton, former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, and Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg will also take the podium. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
So far, at least 55 protesters have been arrested following these violent clashes with police in downtown Chicago on the second night of the DNC.
That's right. Chicago Police Superintendent Larry Snelling called the clashes outside the Israeli consulate a danger to our city. Snelling said that the protesters showed up with the intention of committing acts of violence and vandalism. Next, for a closer look at day 2 of the DNC, which was yesterday, with the election just 2.5 months away, we have with us here live Mike Leon. He's the Policy and Strategy Director at the Free and Equal Elections Foundation and host of news commentary podcast, Can We Please Talk? Good to see you as always, Mike. What were some of the most memorable moments of the night for you last night?
Hey, Chris, good to see you. Long time no see, buddy. Yesterday was very interesting, right? Because it was kind of a little bit of the old guard. You saw Chuck Schumer there. You saw, obviously, Bernie Sanders there. You saw the Obamas, who were in the White House for 8 years, giving a bunch of different speeches and being able to really showcase, some of the star power that the Democratic Party has in terms of speakers that can go out there and really engage with the audience. I think the biggest things that stood out to me were kind of two speeches that were kind of flown under the radar. One was Ana Navarro, who I know is a contributor across CNN and is on The View for ABC. And she talked about something that was personal to me as somebody who is Cuban, and the story of her family coming here and the story of why the differences between the Harris-Walz administration and the Trump administration with respect to what some of the things Donald Trump has said in past interviews. So that was something that made a dent. The other one was Stephanie Grisham, obviously, who worked in the White House. And I know that, she worked obviously with former First Lady Melania Trump. She was another one that took the stage yesterday at the DNC, along with, the Mesa, Arizona mayor. So there's a lot of folks that are crossing over from the political aisle that are Republicans. Adam Kinzinger is going to speak tomorrow, that are kind of speaking at the DNC. And that's kind of making a little bit of, at least in somebody who is truly nonpartisan or trying to look at this from a nonpartisan lens, seeing that crossover of some Republicans coming to speak at the DNC is something that is a little bit of head scratching, right? You probably wouldn't have seen that 20 years ago in American politics.
Yeah, what do you think's driving that?
I think truly it's the Trump hold on the Republican Party, and I say hold not in the way that connotation-wise some people would think. I think it's the fact that folks maybe just don't want this version of the Republican Party. They want the version that I've spoken about, Chris, which is the John McCain version, right? Which is when he grabbed that microphone from that woman back in 2008 when he was running for president, saying, no, these are just policy positions I differ on. Like, this is where I want to return us to. Civility, right? It's those McCain, Romney type of Republicans. And you see it, by the way, former president of the United States speaking at a Democratic convention last night. George W. Bush didn't appear at the RNC at all. And so I think that's telling for me, because it shows that the Trump party and the hold on the party has really said, we don't want those style of Republicans in the party anymore. So they don't have a place to go. And naturally, the DNC obviously is going to invite them to the DNC to be able to speak at it and kind of tell that story. So that's what I think is kind of driving it.
And of course, we've seen Democrats move towards the Republicans, Tulsi Gabbard. Also, former President Barack Obama, of course, spoke last night, his wife as well. Obama reminded the nation of what Abraham Lincoln called the better angels of our nature. I'm just wondering what you think about his speech.
You know, his speech overall, and I heard this recently from some folks, you know, familiar with the speechwriters over there that he still employs, and that he had cut this down a little bit to be a little bit shorter. Obviously, day one ran a little bit longer, so they cut down some of the speeches for day two. But I think Obama yesterday really showcased the ability that he has to gravitate an audience and hang on his every word. Now, we can obviously drill into the policy part of this, Chris, right? Because at some point, people are always going to say, the speech doesn't have enough policy. He's not talking about young black men and some of the things that maybe he didn't do when he was president for African-American males. But the problem is it's a speech in front of an audience at a stadium that you have to captivate and, you know, they have to be uplifted, right? So there's this performative element that comes with giving a speech like that. What will be really interesting for me, Chris, tonight will be Governor Walz's speech, because a lot of us have not heard Governor Walz on a stage and a platform like this. I know he's been hitting the campaign trail the past couple of weeks, and they've been doing some appearances, and they were in Milwaukee last night. But this is going to be the biggest audience he has. His introduction to American politics outside of folks in Minnesota knowing who he is. We need to know what he thinks policy position-wise, and does it align and jive with what independent voters truly want in this candidate? Because remember, this guy won conservative-leaning district. This guy was formally endorsed by the NRA and AIPAC, which is like oil and water being mixed into a salad. So we're interested to see what Tim Walz will look like and sound like from a policy position standpoint. He's going to adopt Kamala Harris's viewpoints, but I need to hear what he thinks about certain things. Like, and that's truly what is at stake for him tonight, given the audience size that he's going to have.
And that's indeed something we need to know about the Kamala Harris campaign as a whole. I mean, we don't know a lot about their policies. They have been making a lot of exuberant press appearances at these rallies without doing much interviews off the cuff with the press or interviews. Now, Kamala Harris addressed the crowd at the DNC via live stream from her rally in Milwaukee, Wisconsin last night. I'm curious, is it unusual for a presumptive nominee to miss a day of the convention at the rally somewhere?
It's so interesting that you say that. I've been trying to remember times in American politics over these last 7 weeks that these things have happened, right? Like of current president of the United States speaking at the convention on a Monday. Think about that, Chris. Like, I couldn't believe it, right? Because you're probably going to be hard pressed to find an example like that. Kamala Harris obviously doing some campaign stops yesterday in Milwaukee. Today she's doing something else, and she said she'll be back at the DNC on Thursday. That is interesting. Why wouldn't she be there over the course of the couple of days? I want to touch on something that you just said, which was about the interview part of this and the policy part of this. I think it is important for her, taking out buzzwords and phrases from anybody that will criticize her for not doing an interview. I do truly think it's important for her to do an interview with the press corps. I don't know about one-on-one sit-downs, because one-on-one sit-downs, as somebody who has interviewed members of Congress, Senate, etc., one-on-one interviews are you talk to the comms director, you hand over, some questions or at least guidelines of what you're going to do, and then the interview is shot. Whereas talking to the press corps is rapid fire, and it's different media outlets like ours and like other outlets that can ask her questions about her policy positions. And I think it's imperative that she does that if she doesn't address some of the things in her speech Thursday night.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting to see. We know that they're planning to have an interview with the press sometime at the end of this month, which is just a week or more away. Mike Leon, Policy and Strategy Director of the Free and Equal Elections Foundation, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Chris, as always.
With the DNC now underway, we'll take you there with on-the-ground interviews, in-house analysis, and more. So be sure to tune in for our live special coverage of The Nation Decides 2024. Join our very own Steve Lance and Tiffany Meyer tonight at 5 p.m. Eastern, right here on NTD. We'll be covering the DNC every evening until it wraps up this Thursday, so don't miss it. Coming up, the Kennedy campaign will address the nation on Friday. Will Robert F. Kennedy Jr. drop out of the presidential race and endorse former President Trump?
That'll be interesting. New Yorkers will be allowed to vote by mail this November. We have the latest in the state's Supreme Court's latest ruling. That and more after the break.
According to ancient Chinese medicine, purslane is considered a medicinal herb and is used to help lower cholesterol, improve vascular functions, and prevent diabetes. perilla seeds can nourish the lungs and spleen. It is used to treat asthma and improve pulmonary functions. Puritang green vegetable omega-3 is made from purslane and perilla seeds from Hwangmae Mountain in South Korea. It contains over 90% of omega-3, 6, 7, and 9, the highest concentration possible without chemical additives. The soft gel is made of natural seaweed. It is 100% organic and vegan. Both adults and children can take it with peace of mind. Ancient recipes were passed down from heaven to bring prosperity and longevity. Puritang green vegetable omega-3.
I'm Ilka. I live with my daughter and with my grandchildren. There's a sense of comfort that comes with eating a good meal. We try to make the most, of what we have. We have rent to pay, and then there are lights and there are gas. And while my daughter and I both work, it still just doesn't seem like there's enough to go around sometimes.
Every day, millions of our neighbors face hunger, including 1 in 5 children, and food costs keep rising. Please call or go online right now to join Feeding America with your gift of just $19 a month, only 63 cents a day. Your monthly support can fill plates with nutritious food for families across the country and in your community, thanks to a nationwide network of food banks and volunteers.
If you were over and playing with us, you were part of our family and you were going to eat. A real cook can take nothing and make something.
No one should ever have to wonder if they will have enough to eat, and our neighbors are working hard to feed their families every day. Call or go online now. Visit helpfeedingamerica.org and give $19 a month. 98% of donations go directly to help millions of people facing hunger from coast to coast and in your own community. Use your credit card and you'll get this exclusive canvas grocery bag as a thank you for joining hands with people across America to help end hunger.
Some of the lessons that I hope that my family will take, it is important to treat people the way that you want to be treated. I have carried on the tradition of loving people through food.
Please call right now or go online to make a monthly gift at helpfeedingamerica.org. Your support helps our neighbors bring food home to their families.
Welcome back. We are waiting to hear a major announcement from independent presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr.
That's right. He says he'll address the nation on Friday about the present historical moment and his path forward.
Kennedy's campaign announced that he will give a speech in Phoenix, Arizona on Friday morning. Details about the speech's content have not been disclosed. This will be the Kennedy campaign's first public event since early July.
Kennedy's running mate Nicole Shanahan said in a podcast interview on Tuesday that the campaign is considering whether to join forces with former President Trump. Trump will be holding his own rally in Arizona that same evening. And an update on former President Trump's civil fraud case in New York. A New York appeals court is set to hear oral arguments on Trump's $454 million judgment next month. Trump has asked the First Department Appellate Division to throw out Judge Arthur Engoron's order. Engoron found Trump liable for fraud and ordered him to pay $354 million plus $100 million in interest. Trump is arguing the case never should have been brought because the conduct is too old. Back in April, Trump posted a $175 million bond, if you remember that. That was after the appeals court lowered the bond amount. That paused any action from the New York Attorney General's office to take over properties or bank accounts. A decision in this case is unlikely to be issued by Election Day. Next, voting by mail is here to stay in New York. The state's highest court upheld the state law yesterday that allows any voter to cast a ballot by mail, rejecting a lawsuit challenging the statute. In a 6-1 decision, the State Court of Appeals affirmed lower court rulings that the Early Mail Voter Act did not conflict with the state constitution. Congresswoman Elise Stefanik led the lawsuit. She argued that the Constitution requires in-person voting unless a voter suffers from an illness or a disability or is away from home on Election Day. Chief Judge Rowan Wilson wrote that nothing in the Constitution's text clearly establishes an in-person voting requirement. In a statement, Stefanik called the ruling disgraceful, while New York Governor Kathy Hochul called the decision a victory for democracy on X. Quite the contrast there.
In November, voters in Arizona and Montana will decide whether to enshrine abortion access in their state constitutions. The Arizona Supreme Court validated a 200-word summary yesterday used by abortion advocates to gather signatures. The ruling ensures the measure will remain on the ballot. Meanwhile, Montana's Secretary of State Christy Jacobson certified the state's constitutional initiative for the November ballot. Both measures would allow abortions until fetal viability around 24 weeks. Arizona would allow some post-viability abortions to protect the mother's life or health, including mental health. Montana's measure also allows later abortions if needed to protect the mother's life or health. A Kansas mother has been sentenced to life in prison after her 2-year-old son fatally shot his 4-year-old sister. Marianne Belair will not be eligible for parole for 25 years, according to the sentence handed down yesterday in Shawnee County District Court. The Topeka Capital-Journal reported the details. In May, jurors found Marianne Belair guilty of aggravated child endangerment and first-degree murder during the commission of a felony. Belair testified that she removed a loaded 9mm handgun from her diaper bag and placed it on the couch beside her. According to the deputy district attorney, the gun remained on the couch for at least 12 minutes before Belair's 2-year-old son picked it up and fatally shot his sister. Court records show Belair later complained in a handwritten motion that her trial attorney discouraged her from accepting a plea deal. A new attorney assigned to her case has since requested a new trial.
Nearly 200 drinking fountains and faucets across one of the largest public school districts in the country had elevated levels of lead. The Oakland Unified School District in California disclosed the findings in a letter to families, according to USA Today. It tested more than 1,000 faucets and fountains at 40 different schools. About 17% had levels of lead above the district's standards. According to USA Today, the district's standards are higher than the state and federal guidelines. The fixtures with elevated lead levels are being repaired. So far, 61 have been fixed and are waiting to be retested. Lead exposure can be harmful for young children. The CDC says it can lead to brain and nervous system damage, slow development and growth, and cause hearing and speech problems.
A legal battle is brewing between two Chinese online fast fashion giants. Shein has filed a lawsuit against its competitor Temu in a U.S. federal court. In its lawsuit, Shein accuses Temu of stealing designs, copying product images, and encouraging sellers to offer counterfeit items and substandard products. This comes as Shein faces its own lawsuits from brands and designers who claim the company has stolen their designs and sold copycat items on its site. Temu reacted to the lawsuit, saying, quote, Shein, buried under its own mountain of IP lawsuits, has the nerve to fabricate accusations against others for the very misconduct they're repeatedly sued for. The two companies have previously sued each other in U.S. courts.
This sounds like corporate Jerry Springer. Next, turning to the aviation safety, FAA is referring fewer unruly airline passengers to the FBI for possible prosecution than they did during the pandemic, although the number of incidents remains high. The FAA said today that it referred 43 reports to the FBI during the past year. Airlines have reported more than 1,200 cases to the FAA this year. This figure has dropped about 80% compared with nearly 6,000 in 2021. Back then, many confrontations with flight attendants and other passengers started with travelers who objected to wearing a face mask. Relatively few of the cases are deemed serious enough to be passed along to the FBI for investigation and potential filing of criminal charges. Referrals in the past year included passengers who tried to break into the cockpit, assaulted airline crew members or other passengers, or threatened others on the plane. The FAA can propose civil penalties up to $37,000, but lacks authority to file criminal charges. It struck a deal with the FBI to increase prosecutions. A federal judge in Texas has blocked the Biden administration's ban on non-compete agreements. The judge found the Federal Trade Commission, or FTC, lacked the authority to issue the rule. The ban would have made contract clauses that ban workers from moving to rival employers invalid. The rule was to take effect in September and would have affected an estimated 30 million workers. In a statement, the FTC said it was disappointed by the decision and is considering an appeal. And Google must face a lawsuit over Chrome's controversial data collection. That's what a federal appeals court ruled yesterday. The panel of 3 judges reversed a lower court decision to dismiss the lawsuit, which claimed Google Chrome collected data without users' permission. The appeals court said there was a discrepancy between the way Google marketed its privacy policy and the way that it collected some data. The lawsuit claims that Google misled Chrome users who had not enabled Chrome Sync, which saves passwords, open tabs, and more to your Google account open on multiple devices. The case will go back to the lower court for trial. A Google spokesperson said the company disagreed with the ruling and that it was, quote, confident the facts of the case are on their side.
4 bodies were found today aboard the sunken wreck of a yacht belonging to the wife of British tech magnate Mike Lynch. This according to sources close to the rescue operation. Authorities did not specify the victims' identities. So far, 3 of the bodies have been transported to nearby hospitals for identification. Britain's British Daily Telegraph reported that 2 of the dead were Lynch and his 18-year-old daughter. Local authorities in Sicily declined to comment on the report. The yacht was carrying 22 passengers and crew and was anchored off the port of Porticello near Palermo. 15 people survived and 5 bodies have been recovered. 2 people remain missing. With the sunken boat lying at a depth of around 160 feet, attempts to locate the missing have been difficult. Fire brigade officials say divers have only 8 to 10 minutes at the site of the wreck before they have to resurface.
As part of his programming efforts during the DNC, former President Trump is set to give a speech on national security in the battleground state of North Carolina this afternoon. It'll be his first outdoor rally since the assassination attempt. And of course, we saw some of that earlier. Joining us now live is NTD's White House correspondent Iris Tao, who is at that rally in Asheboro. Good afternoon, Iris. What are you seeing there, and what are we going to hear? What are we hearing?
Right, so today is former President Trump's first outdoor rally since that assassination attempt in Butler, Pennsylvania, a little bit over a month ago, and security was apparently ramped up for today's setting. We saw that around President Trump's podium there were ballistic or bulletproof glass panels set up both in front of him and behind him to protect both his front and rear side. And also we saw snipers on the roof over there. They're still hanging out there on the roof on the structures nearby, as well as we saw containers, shipping containers and storage containers actually stacked up to protect this whole perimeter to prevent any empty line of sight that's left unguarded. So a lot of new security measures, especially the glass. Not that Trump was within them the whole time, but it certainly provided some extra security. Today's crowd was less than the crowd in Butler, Pennsylvania. When we were there, there was a big rally. Today's was smaller, but security measures here were heavy. People told me here that they felt very safe coming to this first outdoor rally since that. And although one woman told me that she trusted more the local law enforcement instead of the Secret Service after what happened. Meanwhile, today's speech was focused on national security. Trump spent a lot of time criticizing the Afghanistan withdrawal, which he says was a botch in security mistake, and also vowed to fire and get resignation letters from all the officials involved in that incident, which killed 13 U.S. soldiers as well as left weapons for the Taliban in Afghanistan. And Trump also talked about other economic security issues, including how he vows to bring jobs back to the U.S., protect factories right here in North Carolina. He also talked about standing up to China, saying that he's going to prevent China from using Mexico Mexico to ship cars to the U.S. to avoid tariffs, saying he's going to impose 150% to 200% tariffs on these Chinese cars and prevent them from destroying the auto industries in places like Detroit and South Carolina. And just earlier, before Trump spoke, we also heard from his running mate, Senator J.D. Vance, who also touched on China, saying the one biggest thing that Trump did while in office was to end the U.S.'s economic dependence on communist China. Vance said that China lied about COVID, stole intellectual property from the U.S., and also took advantage of the U.S. when it comes to trade. And he says that in the potential second Trump administration, they will stand up to China, especially will make it a hell of a price for China to pay if it keeps letting fentanyl come into the U.S. Also, of course, other issues internationally were touched on, including Israel, Russia, NATO, and the common themes we've been hearing from Trump. And Trump also actually in particular talked about the economy, including the latest big down revision of the U.S. jobs report, saying how actually from March 2023 to March 2024, there were about 800,000 fewer jobs than initially reported. And Trump called that a big scandal that got leaked right before the election. A lot of issues to touch on, especially as Trump is set to travel to Arizona tomorrow with a rally near Phoenix and Tucson, as well as in Las Vegas. He's going to continue his counter-programming efforts as the Democratic National Convention is taking place in Chicago this week. Back to you.
A lot to follow there, Iris. Thank you so much for your report. We'll come back to you as things evolve.
When we come back, Target may have found its bullseye with shoppers.
The retailer explains what's at the center of its comeback quarter. And Ford takes a nearly $2 billion hit as its electric vehicle rollout gets rolled back. Its EV business is on track to lose $5 billion this year. Stay tuned.
When I started MyPillow, it was just a problem solution, one product company. Well, since then, with the help of my dedicated employees, we now have hundreds of products, some you might not even know about. To get the word out, we're having a $25 extravaganza. 2-pack multi-use MyPillows, $25. MyPillow sandals, $25. And for the first time ever, our 6-pack towel sets, you guessed it, just $25. Our brand new 4-pack dish towels, $25. And I've never done this before. Premium MyPillows with all new Giza fabric, any size, any loft level, even king size for only $25. And there's so much more. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code for our $25 extravaganza. Order $75 and over. Your entire order ships absolutely free.
Do you ever wake up and realize your life has no purpose?
Do I have a death wish? Morgan asked. Maybe I did. I thought this would be our final run ever. We had made millions and millions of dollars, but God had other plans.
Peter Lowe, the one-time drug dealer turned pastor, along with 2 others, will be executed at 12 midnight local time.
The next day, something strange happened. Someone came up to me and gave me this flyer about Jesus.
You can be in heaven, or you can be in hell. The choice is yours.
We'll walk straight out of here, pretend to be the media.
This pathetic maggot got caught, tried to escape my prison. Nobody escapes my prison.
He's a changed person. He's a new man.
I found Christ in here, and he forgave me.
I found Christ too.
My name is Peter Lowe, and I will be executed in 2 hours. Why am I being executed, you ask?
Jesus is for free, and salvation is a gift. Do you believe in Jesus?
Thanks for staying with us. For today's Business Matters, we have Don Ma here with us, of course. Don, it is good to see you. How's business?
Yeah, business is booming. Speaking of which, let me get through the stories today. All right, so the labor market, it looks like to be weaker than initially reported, and the Labor Department has revised non-farm payroll growth down by 818,000 fewer jobs. So that's about 30% less than initially reported, and this revision covers the time period from April last year to March this year. Now, the sector with the biggest downward adjustment was professional and business services. The new report could prompt the Federal Reserve to consider lowering interest rates. While the Bureau of Labor Statistics routinely updates figures, this revision is part of a broader annual adjustment. And next, China is pitting dairy against the EVs as tension builds with the European Union. So what I mean here is that the Chinese regime has launched an anti-subsidy probe into dairy imports from the EU, and this comes a day after Brussels shared its revised tariff plan for Chinese-made electric vehicles, and the EU revised its proposed punitive duties to about 36%. So that's down a bit from the initial plan, but far from being dropped, which is what Beijing called on Brussels to do. And China's anti-subsidy dairy investigation will focus on various types of cheeses, milks, and creams. The EU was China's second largest source of dairy products last year. Now, staying on China a little bit, China has become a blemish, if you will, for beauty retailer Sephora. And that's why the LVMH-owned company has announced job cuts in China. A spokesperson said that this would impact about 120 roles. In other markets, Sephora is one of the growing businesses for the French luxury giant, but it has not performed well in China. High unemployment and a property market slump have hit consumer confidence. Sephora has seen Chinese consumers curb their spending on creams and makeup. Now, back here in the US, slashing prices has raised Target's shares. It's up about 12% today. The retailer surpassed Wall Street's profit forecast for the second quarter. CEO Brian Cornell credited the price cuts on thousands of daily essentials for boosting shopper response. Now, these items are where Target had been losing market share to rival Walmart for several quarters. After a long stretch of sluggish sales and squeezed profits, traffic increased both in stores and as well as online. However, Target remained cautious with its full-year sales forecast, keeping its projections unchanged. Its COO said it's difficult to predict consumer behavior and the economy in the upcoming months. All right, more to get through today. Macy's posting a mixed quarter. So in response, shares are down about 12%. The iconic department store topped Wall Street's earnings expectations but missed on revenue. CEO Tony Spring described the consumer environment right now as challenging. And in an interview as well, he said that shoppers aren't spending as freely across all Macy's brands. And Spring said that even affluent consumers aren't buying as much as they were a year ago. Now, comparable sales at Bloomingdale's, which is owned by Macy's, declined. Beauty brand Bluemercury, on the other hand, saw a rise in comparable sales. But the namesake Macy's brand remained the company's weakest performer. Now, when you're grocery shopping, have you noticed that digital price tags on the shelves? Well, retailers are increasingly using tiny screens to display prices instead of pieces of paper. But could retailers use them to exploit consumers? Take a look.
Digital price tags are here. Old-fashioned price tags use up tons of paper and take a ton of time to replace. But digital price tags can be changed from a smartphone. One Walmart employee says that saves a lot of time.
Before digital shelf labels, doing an store price change took a couple of days, and now it takes only minutes.
Walmart wants 2,300 stores to use digital price tags by 2026. Kroger expanded their use to 500 stores last year. But Senators Elizabeth Warren and Bob Casey worry retailers will exploit consumers by raising prices automatically based on time of day, high demand, or other factors. They say stores may raise turkey prices before Thanksgiving or ice cream prices on a hot day. The senators cite a 2021 UCLA study, which they say found time-based pricing creates value for stores but no benefit for consumers. But the lead author of the report told NTD it's not so absolute.
It really depends on the competition. I think that if your store to compete, then in the case, they will even it out in equilibrium.
Tong says retailers don't operate in a vacuum. If a company raises its prices too much, customers will naturally go somewhere else. So competition between stores will help keep prices low.
Depending how you frame it, you could have a regular price, which is high price, but then during the slow period of time, that is a discount.
Tong says consumers may be happy about the discounts. Kroger told NTD any test of electronic shelf tags is to lower prices more for customers where it matters most. To suggest otherwise is not true.
Now, today, let me also mention a little bit about aviation safety. The FAA is referring fewer unruly airline passengers to the FBI, and this is compared than they did during the pandemic. The FAA said that today it referred 43 reports to the FBI during the past year. Relatively few of the cases are deemed serious enough to be passed along to the FBI for investigation and potential filing of criminal charges. Referral in the past year included passengers who tried to break into the cockpit, as well as assaulting airline crew members or other passengers, or threatened others on the plane. The FAA can propose civil penalties of up to $37,000, but lacks authority to file criminal charges. It struck a deal with the FBI to increase prosecutions. Now, turning to Walmart, it has unloaded its entire stake in one of China's biggest e-commerce companies. So the retail giant has divested from partner JD.com, and Bloomberg reports that Walmart raised about $3.5 million from the sale. Their partnership started in 2016 when Walmart was trying to gain a greater foothold in China. But now Walmart is doing well in the country with strong online sales and popularity with its Sam's Club. Meanwhile, JD has struggled to maintain its market share amid growing competition. In a statement, Walmart said it would continue its commercial relationship with JD. Walmart is refining its strategy in China and said that it's going to use the funds for other priorities. A legal battle is brewing between two Chinese online fast fashion giants. Shein has filed a lawsuit against its competitor Temu in a U.S. federal court. So in this lawsuit, Shein accuses Temu of stealing designs on top of copying product images and encouraging sellers to offer counterfeited items and substandard products. So all this comes as Shein faces its own lawsuits from brands and designers who claim the company has stolen their designs and sold copycat items on its site. Now, Temu reacted to the lawsuit, saying, quote, Shein, buried under its own mountain of IP lawsuits, has the nerve to fabricate accusations against others for the very misconduct they're repeatedly sued for. The two companies have previously sued each other in U.S. courts. And an unprecedented simultaneous stoppage of Canadian freight could be just hours away. The two main freight companies are set to lock out union workers at 12:01 Thursday morning, which could have a widespread impact. Businesses across various industries are bracing for the possible effects, as many rely on Canadian National Railway and Canadian Pacific Kansas City. Both railroads have proposed raises, but negotiations are stalled over issues related to schedules and rules to prevent fatigue. Government officials are actively working to resolve the dispute, but the Prime Minister has been reluctant to force the Teamsters Canada Rail Conference union to accept a deal. Meanwhile, Ford is rolling back its electric vehicle rollout. It's completely canceling its 3-row all-electric SUV, taking a $1.9 billion hit. Here's that story.
Ford is cancelling its all-electric 3-row SUV. The failed project will cost the carmaker almost $2 billion. It's left a dent in Ford's all-electric vehicle plans.
automakers have to read the market better and focus on different segments. Ford is deciding that it wants to shift focus to the lower, more affordable segments.
Auto expert Paul Eisenstein says EV demand growth is slowing, but still growing. He says the market is shifting towards smaller, more affordable vehicles.
EVs tend to come in $5,000 to $10,000 more on average than gas models. There is a real demand for more affordable products, and that's what the industry has to put more emphasis on.
Ford says its EV business may lose $5 billion this year. After scrapping its electric SUV, the car maker will now focus on a hybrid model instead. Ford's next generation of electric vehicles will now begin with an all-electric van set for release in 2026. Ford's CEO is saying that Chinese competitors have an advantage because of lower costs and advanced battery technologies. He said last month that the fitness of the Chinese in EVs will eventually wash over our entire industry in all regions.
Now, the price of used cars was actually one of the bright spots in last month's CPI inflation report, down almost 11% since last year and 20% from their pandemic highs. And Edmunds reporting that the price of used EVs are down 20% since last year. So what's the deal there? Joining me live now is Lauren Fix, automotive expert at Car Coach Reports. Lauren, how are you doing? That's a nice car you're in. Looks interesting.
Yes, this is a 2025 Volvo EX90. This is a three-row SUV, and why Ford is moving away from it, Volvo is embracing it with this brand new vehicle. It'll be running for World Car of the Year and North American SUV of the Year. I can't tell you how it drives because that's embargoed, but I will tell you the vehicle, what you see may not be what you expect. It's very, very European, and they did a nice job. But as far as the used car market, what you're finding is very interesting. And as you talk about the electric cars on the used car side, they have just sank in price. 20% is dramatic. And if you are looking for a used electric vehicle, the best place to go is to go to Hertz because they're getting rid of their full fleet of electric cars and they've lowballed the prices dramatically. So you could pick up a used electric vehicle. However, what's really important in purchasing a used electric vehicle versus a gas or a hybrid, it's really important to note that that battery life has to be checked. So have a technician look at it, whether it be Tesla or Ford or whatever it might be that's electric, because you could find yourself with a big bill or a vehicle that doesn't run if the battery runs out of its full lifespan.
Yeah, so I'm just noticing the huge windows on that car. It looks pretty cool, but yeah. So is it a good time to buy a used car right now? I'm wondering.
Well, you know, that's a tough question because people aren't buying the new cars at the rate they are, and you're seeing a lot of incentives from Mazda, from other brands that are lowering their price, offering 0% financing, because especially Nissan as well, Stellantis, because they need to get product off the lot as 2025 start to roll in. This is now the time during the summer, a great time to buy at the end of the month. So next week would be your sweet spot to purchase as the new model years come in, and as last year's models are left on lots, your selection may be more limited. But there's great incentive deals. There's money on the hood, as we say in our business. So check with the brand, check with the dealer, and then shop around. I'll prefer to buy locally, but sometimes it's best to buy online, and you can get some great deals. But keep in mind, check with your insurance agent because some of these vehicles are more expensive as they add more technology. Electric vehicles are more expensive to insure. So do your homework before you make that final decision.
So in your opinion, I mean, if you are thinking of making a purchase, should you go to the used car market or the new car market?
Well, sometimes the used car market is pretty equivalent. So it's really important that you, one, figure out what you want to drive. When it comes to new cars, there is negotiating space on 2024 models. As far as used cars, I highly recommend that you buy whatever brand. You're looking at a General Motors product, go to a GM dealer. You're looking at a Honda, go to a Honda dealer because you're going to get that certified pre-owned, which is really the best investment because somebody else took the depreciation. You will then be able to purchase a car that's fully loaded or trade in from a lease that somebody else had as they move on to the next vehicle. And that's where you're going to get your best deal. Buying from an alternate brand like a Nissan and a Honda lot, you're not going to get that same warranty, which is what you want. That certified pre-owned is your best value, especially when it comes to the resale.
You said at the beginning that you could buy from Hertz. How do you do that? Can you explain that to us?
Sure. Hertz has used car lots all around the country. You can go on their website, and they do sell vehicles as they get a lot of miles on them. So typically cars are not treated as nicely as you might treat that vehicle. They're usually abused because they're rental cars, but that doesn't mean that they didn't fix them up and get them ready for resale. So they'll do the best they can. It's important to shop around. You can do that shopping online on Hertz's website. If you check your local online, there might be one in larger cities like Philadelphia, New York, and LA and so forth. But if you can pick up a used electric vehicle and it's something that you really would like to add to your vehicle, or maybe your state's mandating it, or maybe there's incentives. There are incentives. It's $2,000 from the federal government. So don't leave that money on the table, because that could save you additional money, especially if you're buying a Hertz car, which they're desperate to get rid of.
All right, Lauren, always great to speak with you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and that's all the stories we have for you on today's Business Matters. And I'm tossing it back to you guys. Chris, Fiona?
Don, I'm sitting here taking notes about buying used cars. I wish I had the opportunity to speak to Lauren Fix back in October or so. I bought a Toyota Corolla back then, and I'm checking prices as I'm hearing about these used car prices coming down, and now would have been a better time to buy it.
Well, I mean, she's a great guest. I mean, she's a real veteran within the industry, the automotive industry. She's a real expert, has plenty of experience, and she also tries out all sorts of vehicles as part of her job. She told me one time that she actually drove in the Tesla Cybertruck, which, if I'm being honest, I would like to do that as well.
Yeah, she has such a cool job. I know that her husband, and her 2 kids, they all race. So like race cars. So very unique family. Don Ma, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next, the Hungarian capital of Budapest held a grand fireworks display yesterday evening to wrap up celebrations for the country's National Day. Despite criticism, the Hungarian Prime Minister's government has been spending more public money every year on the event. This year's show cost over $42 million to put on. The viewing area spanned 3 miles and 3 downtown bridges over the Danube. Look at that incredible firework display there. More than 45,000 separate pyrotechnic effects were visible at the fireworks display. It was made even more spectacular by a drone show and light painting.
Well, that really was a spectacular view there. Very lovely.
Yeah, I'd love to see that.
Right. Well, thank you for watching NTD Newsroom. I'm Fiona G.
And I'm Chris Beers. See you tomorrow.